Hello, Jeff Zwerink, and welcome to Science Faith Connection, the segment of our show where we explore important scientific ideas and see how they relate to the truth of Christianity. Today I'm joined by founder and president of Reasons to Believe, Dr. Hugh Ross, and we're going to talk about natural disasters. Hugh, it's good to have you here today.
Well, thank you.
So natural disasters are things that, people talk a lot about, wonder how could God do this? Is this part of God's plan? Is this evidence for or against God? So thought I'd just start off, how would you define natural disaster?
Well, it says in John 16, in this world you'll have tribulation. I mean, you got gravity, you got thermodynamics, you got electromagnetism. So these things will happen. And the Bible tells us there's good reasons for these laws of physics. It's part of God's tool chest to eradicate evil and suffering once and for all. But God's in the process of doing that. So don't be surprised that, hey, your face kind of sags as you get older. That's just thermodynamics. You are going to get wildfires. You are going to get hurricanes. That's part of the natural order. It's temporary.
So wait a second, let me push back a little bit. So it's one thing, okay, you got gravity that keeps planets in orbit around the sun, that sort of thing, and it allows us to walk. But it doesn't seem to me that the connection between, okay, there's gravity, and therefore you have to have earthquakes or you have to have hurricanes where people die. That seems a little inconsistent there.
Well, it's not just gravity, it's a combination of all the laws of physics. If you got all the laws of physics operating, you're going to have our planet. If it's going to be habitable, it's got to be hot in its interior. You've got to have plate tectonics. You will get volcanoes. You will get earthquakes. And if you want to have advanced plants and animals, you're going to need wildfires. Without the wildfires, you're not going to be able to recirculate the nutrients they need. The problem is you get too many wildfires, or you get wildfires that are much more problematic than God ever intended. And
so I mean, it sounds like you're saying, and I don't think you are, but it sounds like you're saying, well, God had no choice. This is the way it's got to be. And so we're just going to live on a planet where we die because there's an earthquake that happens. Is that what you're saying?
No, God's got other options.
Okay.
But his primary reason for creating the universe the way he did and setting up the laws of physics the way he did was to enable a process whereby evil and suffering could be permanently eradicated, while at the same time, our free will capacity to experience and express love would be exponentially enhanced. And it's kind of like what the two of us did. We went through college and university to prepare us for a future career. But I don't know about your experience, but there was a lot of suffering I went through to get my doctoral degree. But I understood that if I experience that little bit of suffering for a temporary season, it's going to prepare me for a lifetime career. And likewise, God's preparing us for careers in the new creation. And
so that's a different way of looking at it than I think I've looked at it than most people do. It's like there's this perception, okay, God created this great place for us to live. In fact, I think there are many Christians who would say, yeah, it was perfect, but because we sinned, God had to change things. But what you're saying, if I get it, is that this was never meant to be a permanent place.
Exactly.
This is preparation for that idyllic place where there won't be any earthquakes or things where people die just because of the natural order.
Yeah, there won't be gravity, there won't be thermodynamics. None of that will be necessary because there'll be no possibility for evil ever to arise again. So God has us here for a temporary time. Or to put it another way, in Christianity, it's a two-creation model. The creation that we're in right now has been optimally designed to eradicate evil and suffering while we experience the minimum amount of discomfort and suffering. I always appreciated my professor saying, I'm going to put you through suffering, but I'm going to try to optimize the suffering so that you maximally benefit in the preparation for your future career. Not too little suffering, not too much. I see that in all these things we call natural disasters. They're all at the optimal level. Not too many earthquakes, not too few earthquakes, just the right number and intensity to make our experience in this temporary place we're in as optimal as possible.
So your contention is God has designed it this way with earthquakes and tornadoes, if you will.
Right.
That's the earth he has designed. Do we have any evidence that tornadoes, earthquakes, these sort of natural disasters predate humanity?
Oh yes, we definitely do. I mean, for example, you can see evidence of torrential rainstorms that go back 3 billion years. because you see the splash patterns and sediments telling us that there was these intense rain. I mean, we can go to astronomy and look at distant stars and galaxies and realize the laws of physics are the same back in the past as they are today. The Bible explicitly states there's been no change in the laws of physics. So yes, we'd expect that these things have always been here.
So would you, I mean, how would you respond to Christians who say, you know, God created this idyllic creation where no harm could ever come to humanity, and it was only because humanity sinned that God then rearranged things or changed things as a punishment for humanity not following his commands?
Well, the fact that it says the ground is cursed because of you, it's not cursed because God changed the physics or the natural order. The ground became cursed because we humans decided to commit sin. And because of our sin, when we work the ground, it doesn't produce like God intended it to. Nothing changed with the ground. Nothing changed with the physics. What changed was us. And because we change, we tend to ruin things.
So in this model of the way of looking at it, that you know, I mean, all Christians agree that there is going to be heaven, and in heaven there will not be the natural disasters, presumably.
Right.
So God's not constrained; He's got to have natural disasters. But in this model, He is using that to prepare us for this place. Yeah, it almost sounds like you know, this idea of I will want to do hard things for my kids so that when they grow up, they're prepared to take care of themselves financially or whatever. If I don't make them work and earn and grow and experience some of those hardships, they're not going to be prepared for that. That's kind of the scenario you're envisioning?
That's kind of the scenario I'm envisioning, but just like a loving parent, you allow your children to go through these things, but you do it in such a way that they're going to optimally benefit and minimally suffer. And that's the way God has set things up. But I think we also need to be aware, because of our sin, we can enhance what God never intended us to go through. So for example, we have Jesus saying, don't build your house on sand, build it on the rock. Or to put it in a modern day perspective, don't send your aged parents to live in a mobile home on the beach on East Florida. I mean, we know hurricanes happen there. And if you live in a mobile home, the chances are you're going to have some unpleasant consequences. So be wise and understand. Just like here in California, I mean, we have earthquakes, but we have building codes. And so our homes are structurally designed to withstand earthquakes, where, I mean, you grew up in the Midwest, and it's like, I mean, the homes are cheaper there for one reason. They don't have all the building materials in them that homes here in California do.
Well, thanks, Hugh. I really appreciate your comments. You know, often when we think about natural disasters, we see that as, wow, the human destruction that comes, and we attribute that to God not being careful in planning. But I really love the way Hugh put that God has a plan for us, that place where there will be no suffering and death. That's in the second creation. This first creation is to prepare us for that. And the way God has created us, He gives us a way to understand and know how this creation works so that we can mitigate the damage done to humanity through these natural disasters. You know, I'd encourage you to go to reasons.org and check out Hugh's blog on this. It says, if there's a God, why are there natural disasters? It will give a brief introduction to it, as well as point you to some great resources to help you understand why these natural disasters occur and how God is using them to prepare us for eternity with Him.